My name is Lara Hogan, and I am so excited to chat with you all today about mentorship and sponsorship. There is a resources page with these slides and a bunch of links to the research and blog posts that I'm going to talk about at larahogan.me/sponsors. So when I speak at companies or events like this, I'm usually invited to talk about stuff that's going to help people grow in their careers. Typically, folks crave information that can help answer the question, how can I level up or feel like I'm making progress? I'm guessing that many of you have put some thought into how you want to grow. Maybe you're thinking about a future role or a future title. Maybe you're thinking about the skills that you want to acquire to level up your game. Maybe you're trying to figure out just like, am I doing an okay job right now? Or you're wondering what on earth you want to be when you grow up. I wouldn't be where I am today without leaning on the people around me. People at work, people not at work, family, friends, random strangers on the internet. I bet we can each attest to the fact that in order to grow, it's critical to lean on our network of support. We know we are not going to get far if we try to do all of this solo. You've probably thought about leaning on some other people around you to help you overcome roadblocks or challenges, or to help you solve problems that you haven't seen before. So think about the people who you leaned on in the last week. How many of you asked for someone in your life to give you advice? Or did you gut check an idea that you had with someone else? Or how about pairing with someone or asking them to teach you a new skill? Me too. So let's talk about what it looks like to lean on the right people for the right things. And also how we can help the people around us grow as well. So when I ask people about how they typically get unstuck from a hard problem or how they figure out how to navigate a tricky situation, I often hear that they'll look to a mentor for help. So I'm going to tell you about one of my long-term mentors to illustrate what great mentorship can look like. This photo is from a conference in 2014, and the person in the front is John Allspaw. I have had the honor of leaning on him as a mentor for years. He has helped me through so much. He's given me critical advice through many of my biggest career moments. He also sends me a lot of PDFs of academic research as advice too, but this guy has been one person who I go to when I'm faced with a technical leadership challenge that I've never seen before. He helps me learn a lot by sharing his perspective and his experience with me. And he knows me pretty well, so he knows what kind of advice might be the most helpful to me with any given problem. This is what great mentorship can look like. Mentorship is all about giving advice based on your own experience. So in practice, this looks like a mentor sharing their perspective, sharing what they've seen work and not work, suggesting some things that their mentee could try. It may not be all about the mentor's opinions. They might talk about things like, what they've seen other people do or pitfalls that the mentee should be on the lookout for. But typically, mentorship is about sharing your perspective and your experience with this other person to help them grow and develop their skills. Mentorship mode is very much like having your problem-solving hat on. Getting a mentor is a smart choice when you have a roadblock in front of you, or you're onboarding to a new type of challenge or role. When you're like, I could really use some advice from someone who might know what to do, or maybe they've been through this thing before, or maybe they know someone who's been through this thing, that's when it's time to reach for that mentorship relationship. A good mentor can give you advice and share their knowledge so you can tackle that new problem successfully. And people like to be helpful. Giving advice is usually the first thing that most humans reach for when they're stuck on a problem. And many people, we also like talking about ourselves. But seriously, it can feel really good to be able to share your knowledge and your experience to help someone else grow and learn. Christy Tillman also taught me about how mentors, in addition to giving you advice, can give you visible proximity and tangential relationships to a broader network and to more opportunities. So for sure, having a mentor and someone like John has given me access to a lot more people with an even broader set of experiences and advice. So mentorship is learning from this other person's wisdom and experiences and network too. The Association of Women Surgeons is a super different AWS than the one I was most familiar with. But this paper, Strategies for Building an Effective Mentoring Relationship, was written and published on AWS's website, and it's just phenomenal. It walks through the responsibility of the mentee and the mentor, how to choose a mentor, how to develop that relationship, and so much more. I'm going to highlight a few of their fantastic points now, starting with the primary qualities of a successful mentoring relationship. As their study details, a personal fit is important, since differences in values can seriously undermine a mentoring relationship. They say that qualities of a successful relationship include honesty, active listening, flexibility, reciprocity, mutual respect, a personal connection, and shared values. So without these qualities, you might have a less than productive mentorship relationship, which is frankly a waste of time for both sides. Folks should have more than one mentor because, as we all know, no one person can be your everything. As a mentee, you should probably develop multiple mentoring relationships over the course of your career in order to be successful. And my favorite bit from AWS's paper that truly hits home: the workaholic mentor without any personal life may be a great research advisor, but not someone to emulate for life balance. So I like to ask folks, who can you lean on for the different aspects of your own growth? There will be people in your life with different strengths, different weaknesses, different amounts of time that they can devote to helping you. Don't ever put all of your hopes on just one mentor. Find a diverse group of folks whom you can lean on as you grow. We're going to talk about that a little bit later too. If you're a mentor to others, you may already know that mentoring requires an investment of time, of energy, and of emotional resources. Our mentorship relationships evolve over time because we're growing and our mentees are growing. It's on us as mentors to respect our mentees and to give advice that's current and sensitive to the changing dialogue happening in our industries. Advice that might work for one person might destroy another person's career. So be a responsible mentor and stay up to date on topics of inclusion especially. Also, don't perceive your mentee as a threat. Be generous with credit. Imaginative, innovative ideas often come from the more green folks in our midst. As mentors, we want our mentees to reach beyond us because our mentees' success is ultimately our success. And as a mentor, here's a tip that you should share with any future mentees. I might be a great mentor for someone else, but not the right mentor for you. So I want to assure you, as the AWS article does, that it's okay to stop being mentored by me. I also like to remind folks that while I hope they won't encounter a mentor who treats them poorly or inappropriately, we all know that that can happen too. I've seen competition between a mentor and a mentee become a problem as well. It's okay for either side to say, thanks for your time. I'm going to go focus on this project that I'm working on and walk away. If I'm walking away as a mentor, I usually try to give this person a handful of names of people who might be a better fit or have more time that they can invest in this mentoring relationship. So some people have asked me, what's the difference between mentoring and coaching? When you picture the coach of a team sport, what do you picture them doing? They might be calling out instructions, giving feedback, diagramming plays. Coaches in sports are in many ways like mentors. But in the workplace and with things like life or leadership coaches, we tend to see this role a little bit differently. I'm a leadership coach, which means that rather than giving lots of advice based on my own experience and knowledge, I instead ask lots of genuinely curious coaching questions to the person that I'm working with to help them figure out their own answers. Coaching is not about telling someone else what I think they should do. It's helping to figure out what's actually true for them because we're all super different humans with different skills and experiences and aims. As a coach, I'm helping my clients reflect on where they want to go, what's important or hard or surprising for them, and what's deep inside them that can help them get to the next level. But coaching is a whole other talk, so I won't get into it too deeply here. But I did want to call it out because it's another powerful relationship that you can have that helps you grow and learn outside of a teaching mode like mentoring. So mentoring mode is really great for unblocking and onboarding. And coaching is great for internal growth. So if that's more of what you need right now, consider finding a coach instead of a mentor. But what I really want to talk with you about is another way we can help people get to the next level, and that's sponsorship. And I don't mean like the money bags kind of sponsorship. Sponsors help us find new opportunities and increase the visibility of our work. Sponsors feel on the hook for helping us get to the next level. They might also offer coaching and advice, but their superpower is spotting visible developmental growth opportunities and putting our name in the ring for them. This is Courtney Nash. I met her at a technical conference at a lunch table. The table was organized so that all the women who were attending the conference, there weren't many of us, we could all meet each other. And I learned that she worked for the book publisher O'Reilly. And I was like, oh, hey, I have this book idea. And Courtney did give me advice about how to make that pitch to the publisher. But more importantly, she put my name in the ring directly. She convinced O'Reilly about the book idea after I sent in my proposal, which in turn gave me my first big shot at writing a real print book. Most of the ways that she sponsored me were invisible to me, but it's clear that Courtney believed in me, advocated for me, and cleared the way so I could really grow as a technical leader. So what's the difference between mentorship and sponsorship? The brilliant Kat Small made this illustration, which I'll read to you. In the mentorship speech bubble, she says, have you tried applying to speak at conferences and meetups already? And in the sponsorship one, she says, I recommended you for the speaking gig. Can you do it? Economist and professor Aminia Ibarra says, in mentorship, the connection to actually getting promoted and actually getting developmental assignments has been kind of diluted. Sponsoring has to do with fighting to get somebody a promotion, mentioning their name in an appointments meeting, and making sure that the person that you're sponsoring gets the next assignment and gets visible and developmental assignments. So while mentorship is really handy when it comes to thinking through problems or getting advice on how someone else has tackled an issue before, and coaching is handy for someone as they're connecting their own dots and developing those new brain wrinkles, sponsorship is the one that's more directly correlated to career trajectory. As Cate Huston says, mentors give perspective, sponsors give opportunity. This is because to sponsor someone is to feel on the hook to help get them promoted. It's raising up the name of someone to help them get more opportunities to do visible, valuable work. It can also involve giving advice and coaching, but that's not why it's most effective. As Cate says in her excellent blog post on the subject, sponsorship can be super small too. And it is really likely that you've had a sponsor already in your career. You've probably been a sponsor for someone too, even if you didn't realize it. Anytime you suggest that someone work on a high-impact project or invite them to shadow you at an important meeting, or you tell someone's manager that they're doing a really great job, that's sponsorship. And it is incredibly effective, way more so than mentorship. It can be as simple as someone hopping in Slack and saying, the dashboards are slow today. Is there someone who knows how to fix that? A sponsor might say, Max fixed our dashboards before. Maybe ask them. Another sponsor might say, Sarah's also been doing a lot of performance work recently. Ask her too. Raise up their names. Vouch for them and their work and how they might be a good fit for a leadership opportunity. Make their good work more visible to those who aren't familiar. On the resources page, I linked to a bunch of studies that measured the career benefits of sponsorship. This study here found that when folks have a sponsor, they are way more likely to do things like ask their manager for a stretch assignment or ask for a raise. This is huge, right? It leads to more opportunities for challenging, impactful work. Obviously, a higher salary translates to lots more opportunities in the future. This stuff is enormous. I'm surprised that more people out in the world aren't talking yet about finding sponsors for themselves. As humans, we naturally think through who can help give us that advice that we're looking for. It's time to think more about the power of giving opportunities too. So you might be thinking, How do I go about finding a sponsor? How hard is it to find someone who's willing to go out on a limb for me to help me achieve that career growth? Your manager is probably the first person who comes to mind. Your manager can promote you. They can choose you to lead a project. They are familiar with your work, so they're in a great position to continue to give you opportunities to grow. And they probably feel on the hook for helping you get to the next level. But I'm sorry, just having your manager sponsor you isn't enough. It frankly won't ever be enough. They're just one person. They will have one particular list of places that they can sponsor you, but there's so much more out there to help you get to the next level. So let's talk about how to find more sponsors for yourself. First, maybe obviously, do great and impactful work. Make it easy for someone to vouch for you. Do work that saves people time or money or brain power. Make sure the benefits of your work are visible to other people. Sponsorship is high stakes. I like to remind folks that when you get a sponsor, you're asking them to put their reputation on the line for you. That reputation is predicated on the power dynamic at play in our workplaces. Sponsors will be leveraging their power and their reputation on your behalf. So make sure that you're doing everything in your power to ensure that this is a risk worth your future sponsor taking. Next, find someone who knows your work. Someone who has seen what you're responsible for, has seen you deliver on projects, has seen your technical or leadership aptitude. Often, the person who you report to is the most obvious sponsor for you, but I encourage you to think beyond them to your broader network too. Who else has seen the good work that you do? Who else is qualified to talk about what you've been up to and how helpful you've been to others? Could they be a sponsor for you? Ask them to meet up sometime to talk about a specific way that you want to grow. Don't just walk in there and ask them generically to put your name in for things. Get as specific as possible. Like, I'd like to get more practice with public speaking, and I know you've done a lot of conference talks. I've got this talk abstract that I'm excited about. Could you give me some feedback on it and maybe help me submit my first CFP? Or, I'd like to be a team lead someday, so I'm trying to shadow different leaders and see how they lead meetings. Would it be possible to shadow you at a meeting sometime? Make sure you can back up your request with action. Follow through is so important. I know that this can feel really risky and like you're asking a lot of this person. Remember that people usually like to feel helpful. And also, remember that being specific like this makes it so much easier for this person to say yes. If you have a broad, abstract request, you're making them do more work to figure out how they can be helpful to you. Think of it like making this person, making it easier on their brain to lift up your name. And also give them some supporting evidence that you're going to do great work. Throughout the relationship, keep your sponsor updated on your work and your progress. Let them know all of the ways that your work has been helpful to others, like delivering on your goals, helping your team do even more things. Fill them in on what you've been working on too, any roadblocks that you're hitting, where you might need help, stuff like that. And this should be obvious, but I like to underscore it. Make sure that your work continues to level up those around you and be the kind of work that other people want to vouch for. No one wants to coach or mentor or sponsor someone who's being a jerk or being selfish. I've tried to build my sponsorship relationships by being there for them too. Support doesn't have to be one-sided. I routinely offer to help a sponsor role-play a difficult conversation or process a challenge that they're facing out loud, or give feedback to their communication style or resume, stuff like that. You can offer to listen over coffee or give them some space to vent. You may not think that you can do very much to help, but I promise, just creating a healthy and safe space for someone to share what they're struggling with or working through is a gift. Ask if they'd like advice or just someone to listen. Honor their response. So, I keep talking about this topic as if you have multiple sponsors. I do believe that it's really important to be adding to the crew of people whom you can lean on as you grow. Picture it like each different person is a different facet of the ideal manager for you. And altogether, they make up what I like to call your Manager Voltron. I was inspired by the 1980s television show about heroes that joined forces to create a giant super robot. My Manager Voltron is made up of a list of supportive people that I've worked with or leaned on for years. I consider them each a facet of what my imaginary unicorn manager would be. For example, when I'm stumped and my normal tactics won't work, I reach out to my former coworker, Rafe, who has a completely different leadership style than my own, just to see how he might approach the same challenge. It blows my mind every time. Or when I encounter an executive level problem that I've never seen before, I reach out to my friend Mary, who will give me tips based on her own experience and introduce me to other people who can help me in more ways too. You can see how they each are a different part of a manager relationship for me. Different perspectives, different opportunities, different ways I can lean on them for help. This is your multifaceted network of support, and you can lean on these different people as you grow. Networking is kind of a dirty word. It comes naturally to some people, but to others it can feel forced or disingenuous. But networking doesn't just mean things like figuring out how to get more Twitter followers or attending meetups. Yvette Pasqua, the former CTO at Meetup, she does a really simple thing to grow her network of people that she can lean on and learn from. She picks a topic that she is genuinely curious about, and she finds someone new to ask who has some experience doing that thing or really cares about it. For example, she first reached out to me to get coffee and talk about how to reorganize an infrastructure engineering team because she was about to do a reorg, and I was a director in an infrastructure organization at another company, and she'd figured I'd probably have some thoughts or could talk about pitfalls or approaches. She was right. I have a lot of opinions about how to reorg infrastructure teams. You can grow your crew by finding that one thing that you are authentically curious about, have real questions about, especially real life application stuff. Just reach out to someone in your extended network and ask if they could share their insights on that thing. As you grow your support network, continuously be on the lookout for people who are going to push you out of your comfort zone, have different levels of experience than you, both more experience and less experience. Find people who have experience in a different industry, and find people who are good at the things that you're terrible at, and so on. The best part is you'll be able to transfer the new skills you learned from your crew to other parts of your job in the future. To help you with this list, I've made you a bingo card. Use this bingo card worksheet to fill out as you think about who could be in your Voltron. There will be people who you currently work with, people you've worked with before, maybe people you know on the internet, maybe people you haven't even met yet. Take some time after this talk and figure out who already fills in some of these boxes for you, and which boxes you should go and seek someone to fill in the future. So let's look at this from a slightly different angle. We've been talking about how to find a mentor or a coach or a sponsor for yourself so that you can continue to grow and develop in your career. But everyone here has a lot of power. Believe it or not, no matter your title, you got plenty of opportunities to be a sponsor for someone else too. You got opportunities to lift up other people's names for projects or speaking gigs or writing a company blog post. And as you think about who you might lift up for opportunities to grow and develop, I want to especially call out that members of minoritized groups in tech are over-mentored but under-sponsored. This means that members of minoritized groups get lots of advice, even unsolicited advice. They get a ton of people offering to take them out for coffee or teach them something new or to be a formal mentor. But it is much more rare to have people offer help that looks like sponsorship. Why is this? It's not because people are intentionally ignoring members of minoritized groups, but because of how our brains and social networks work. The people that we name are naturally the people who we're closest to. And more often than not, those are the people who are similar to us in a variety of ways. It has to do with this thing called in-group bias. Let's do a quick exercise. Take a second and think about the first people who pop into your brain. Who was the last person you went to for advice? Who's the last person you referred for a job at your organization or you did an email introduction for? Who did you last give a good book to? Who did you promote recently? Or if you haven't promoted someone, who did you recently recommend work on a really big project? Do you have that list of people in your brain? How many of the people on that list are the same gender as you, same ethnicity, went to the same college as you did, have super similar opinions on Kubernetes as you do. If they are very similar to you, this, my friends, is in-group bias. And it takes so much work to combat this very natural aspect of how we network and support other people. Candidly, until I started learning about this stuff, most of the people that I sponsored were white, cisgendered women like me. Since then, I've worked really hard at finding people to sponsor who are people of color and non-binary and trans folks. It takes really hard work and intention to just combat these very natural instincts. But having a sponsor provides enormous career benefits for everyone, especially members of minoritized groups. For example, with a sponsor, people of color are nearly twice as likely to be satisfied with their rate of career advancement. So what are some tactics that you can employ today to be a sponsor for people who don't look like you? Or, if you're a member of a minoritized group, how can you sponsor someone with different intersections of marginalization? Take a look at the daily communications that you participate in, your work chat logs, the conversations you have with others, the process for figuring out who should fix a bug or work on a new project, the process for making your team's work visible, like architecture reviews, code reviews, launch calendars, etc. You'll be surprised how many moments there are throughout an average day to sponsor someone. What are some other places in your world where you might lift up someone's name? As my mentor and sponsor, John Allspaw, says, as you grow in technical leadership, it's also on you to lift up the skills and expertise of those around you. I'd like to take this one step further. That we should be lifting up the names of those around us for opportunities that we see ahead and shouting from the rooftops about their really incredible work. Future leaders are all around us. I'm so excited to see the people at this conference go out there and help our industry move forward. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
So good to see you, Lara.
So good to see you.
So everyone, in case you joined late, we're going to be having a fireside chat, kind of live Q&A with Lara to answer any questions you might have after seeing your talk. So let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
So first question is from Matt. How do we determine or manage when a sponsorship may be perceived as a negative thing?
Yeah, I'm eager for Matt to add more color here about what kind of negative thing, because I think that the advice may shift depending upon that. Often what I hear from folks is I'm worried about being perceived as if I have preferential treatment of someone if I'm a sponsor for them. And usually, if that's happening, I like to ask lots of questions of the person who might be having that negative attitude, perceiving it as preferential treatment, to kind of unpack with them where that's coming from. Depending upon their answer, maybe they're saying, well, but you're always offering this person the thing, or you're not offering that person the thing. We can dig into what would it look like for us to make sure we more equitably create opportunities for people of different levels, different experiences. It might be an appropriate challenge for me to say, oh, actually, Lara, check your preference here. You are always giving this person those kinds of opportunities. It can be helpful feedback too, but more often than not, it's a way for us to kind of explore together what are all of the different places that we have to sponsor someone for people, blog posts, open sourcing things, and how can we make that more equitable? One more thing though, sometimes sharing studies can help. Especially, there's a whole bunch of studies out there that the Center for Talent Innovation have done research about. I linked to on that page. And a lot of them actually have to do with people of the same ethnicity being a sponsor for other people of the same ethnicity. And there's a lot to unpack in the way that those relationships are perceived. Often people who are members of minoritized groups will try to avoid sponsoring other people who are like them because of that perception of like, you're only trying to bring up people who are like you. Again, the research is out there. I'm so here to help, you navigate combating that perception, because I think it's going to be really important for us to kind of check ourselves with our own, biases there and hopefully unpack it together.
Such a great question and response. So next question coming from Beth. Do people often move from being a mentor to a sponsor? Is there often overlap there?
Almost always. It's funny, what I find is a lot of people who begin as mentors then learn about sponsorship as an option. It feels like they have been trying to be a sponsor without having the word for what that means. And they're trying to be supportive and trying to offer help, but that ends up looking like advice. And once they realize what sponsorship is, it's like almost like a mindset shift. Like you can see the matrix in a way that you couldn't see it before. And so you adapt your approach to supporting this person by, trying to not just tell them what you think that they should do or tell them what you would have done, but instead switch over to finding opportunities and partnering with them to figure out how they want to grow. Yeah, tons of overlap.
Yeah, follow up to that. So do
Mhm.
you often find that people start out as a mentor and kind of gradually become sponsors throughout their relationship with folks?
Almost always, because sponsorship it's been around for forever, but we often don't have words for it, at least not words that we in tech use a ton. I'm really excited to see more people are learning about it. But when I talk to people who are trying to help out, especially members of minoritized groups, when I was working at Etsy, we had our entire staff engineering cohort was dudes, like 98% white dudes, and they were really trying to make that group more diverse. And if their actions were all mentorship actions, it was like, let me pair program with this person and let me take this person out to coffee. And, it took a lot of work to be like, hey, actually, I get your intention here. It feels like mentorship is the most obvious thing. We are taught that the biggest value that we can bring as knowledge workers is sharing our knowledge with other people, but that's actually not the thing that you can do to help people most impactfully. So it's just that mindset shift. And if we can talk more about it, I find it's not always a perfect solution. Like some people still fall back into the mentorship. It feels good. It feels like you're helping. It's hard to remember that you're not. So it just takes like a little bit of like self-management and reminders to continue to like re-emphasize those sponsorship skills.
Nice. And we have another question from Noble. Hi, Noble. How much time should we or do you dedicate to mentorship and coaching and kind of everything that falls in that category?
Yeah, I'm lucky in that I am now a coach. So I get to do this a lot. Within a coaching call, I usually spend like 95% of the time in coaching mode and maybe 5% of the time in mentorship mode. When I was not working for myself, I spent a lot of time in the background finding opportunities to sponsor people for. So, kind of like a running list. I like to draw like a 2x2 diagram that shows within the organization, with outside the organization, what are the public and private places to sponsor people, and like what are all of the opportunities that I have found so far. I kind of fill in that 2x2 chart to try to figure out, okay, what are all of the places I might start to have as this running list going on. That way, as I'm interacting with people, working with them, getting to know them, managing them, I can start to connect the people and the work to the opportunities. So it didn't take up like a huge active part of when I was working for full time, but like it was like the running processes that were always
Mhm.
constantly going. In my one-on-ones, I would make sure that there was always time dedicated, at least 15-20% of the time, talking about how they wanted to grow. And if it was appropriate, also talking about where we could get them that experience or put their name in the ring for those visible and developmental assignments. Great question.
Nice, nice. So this is kind of a follow-up to Matt's earlier question.
Yeah,
So he's giving a little bit more context, and
great.
he's saying that it's more of a lack of context over the given individual's workload, so the timing could be difficult when the actual work occurs. So
Got it.
any thoughts there?
So like the negativity is like you're helping people get all the opportunities, but actually they don't they don't have the capacity. So this happens a lot because sponsors are just trying to help and want to feel helpful. So if you are trying to be an active sponsor for someone, two things: get to know them really well so that you know what kinds of opportunities you want to put their name in the ring for.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to be a bad situation if you're trying to get someone, for example, to give lots of talks and they've got no interest in giving talks. They're either going to not want to do it or they're going to try to do it and just feel bad the whole time. So get to know this person and also get an understanding of where these opportunities might fit into their current career. It might not be a today thing. It might be a 6 months thing. It might be when this project wraps up thing. It might be a today thing, but like getting to know them and actually talking with them is a crucial part of sponsorship. If you don't get to know them, you might feel really good about sponsorship, but you're not actually being a very good sponsor. That said, people don't have to know that you are considering yourself an active sponsor for them. A lot of times I would get to know coworkers, other people in the industry, and I would just casually in conversation get to know what they were interested in. And then, if I would, let's say, get an invitation to speak at a conference and I, thought that this person might be a great fit for it, I'd reach out to that person directly and say, hey, I thought of you for this thing. Can I can I share your name with them? I wasn't like, hello, sponsor here, I'd like to help you out, because it's very self-serving. And frankly, they don't need to know, right? So, but again, it's still, that requirement is still there of getting to know them first.
Also, funny story, I have mentors and sponsors that don't know that they're my mentors and sponsors. So it
Amazing.
goes both ways.
Yes, absolutely.
Very cool. So this question is from Jacqueline. How do you make yourself available as a mentor or a sponsor to people outside of your work?
Yeah, I have loved watching people on Twitter basically say, hey, here's a specific thing that I have expertise I can share with you, things I would like to teach other people about to help them gain this knowledge too. But they're specific. They're not just like, hello, I'd like to be a mentor for more people, because just like we talked about in the talk, that lack of specificity is really hard for people's brains, and it creates a harder roadblock for people to overcome when they want to talk to you. So get specific. Maybe that's, hey, I really want to help people get more comfortable with containers. Hey, maybe I really want to help people get more comfortable with security stuff, or even stuff like how to negotiate when you're getting a job offer. It could be anything. So get specific about it. You also, that's mentorship, right? Sponsorship, you might be like, hey, I'm constantly getting, invitations to write a thing or to speak about something, or, I've got a ton of, potential places I could be a sponsor, but be specific about those places. And on Twitter, or whatever forum you have available to you, say, I would love to have a running list of people who can speak about or write about or whatever the thing is, want to participate in an open source project, and collect that for yourself via that kind of public forum.
Awesome.
I love that.
And this question is from Natalie. When is the right time to finish a mentor relationship?
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. That study that I included, the paper from the Association for Women Surgeons, talks about that a little bit, and I would recommend people go and check it out if they want to see this in more depth. Short version is, anybody should have the option of quitting a mentorship, either direction, right? Honestly, these things can just continue on for the rest of your lives. I have plenty of long-standing mentorship relationships in both directions that I will continue to invest in, and really feel, so lucky that I have. But there's also times when it's either not a good fit, or you just don't have time, you don't have capacity, or like you've proven your usefulness to them. Again, sponsorship is the one that we really should be thinking about really investing our time in. But when it comes to mentoring relationships, if it's time to like wrap it up, if you're the mentor, I would suggest you find someone new that might be a better fit for them at their stage of their career, what they're looking to, how they're looking to grow, and check with that person first to make sure you're cool doing double opt-in intro, to connect them with maybe a new mentor that they could start working with as you wrap up, your time explicitly working together in that capacity.
Awesome. This is another question from Noble. So he says, great talk. From this
Thanks, Noble.
presentation, is it reasonable to summarize the following analog? Sponsorship is to equity and inclusion as coaching and mentorship is to enabling diversity, or is that too much of a force fit?
I would say that's a great question. Let me think about this for a second. So what I find is that sponsorship really touches on all three. Coaching, I wield coaching in lots of venues where there is not a diverse group of people that maybe have a lot of power and privilege among them, to help them maybe introspect about the different ways that they could be better leaders and spread out their power more equitably. I'll have to spend some more time thinking about the correlation between those three things and those two skills, but my spidey sense says that you can kind of use these skills for any altruistic purpose.
Nice. From Beth, if you are the person being sponsored and you know you're being sponsored, how should you communicate what your interests and needs are? What you're looking for in terms of help? Or is it more the role of the sponsor to kind of understand that and figure out what help would look like?
It's so much better if the person who's being sponsored has a really clear picture of how you want to grow. You don't have to say, I want to speak at X, Y, and Z conference, but you can say, I want to build up the skill of speaking at conferences, or just public speaking in general. That level of specificity is crucial. Your sponsor does not have all the time in the world, and you want to make sure that they're spending their energy and time in the ways that they're most impactful, and that's connecting you with those opportunities. So the more work you can do to be specific about the skill sets that you want to grow in, the experiences that you want to gain, or the places that you want to be, get specific and communicate those as specifically as possible. If you're nervous about that, it feels like, oh, I'm asking for too much. Just like I said in the talk, remember, you're making it easier on your sponsor's brain to help you. Don't make them do extra work by trying to guess or help you figure it out. There's certainly a place for that, especially with coaching. But if you really want to make the most of their time, be specific and share that specificity with them.
Awesome. I have one more question, and this is for me. So you mentioned early on leaning on your network, but it can be tough for folks who are new to tech, folks who are changing careers, folks who might be from marginalized backgrounds, to really effectively build those connections. So what would be your advice to people who are struggling to build that network?
Yeah. So that story about Yvette. I didn't know Yvette at all when she reached out to me to ask me if I had any advice about that very specific thing, reorganizing infrastructure teams. And like I said in the talk, like I could spend a 2-hour talk on just my thoughts about reorgs. So I would recommend continuing to find people who might have advice to give on a very specific problem that you are actually working on. People love to share advice, right? Like we talked about. You love to feel like you're helping. So if you're, new to the industry or just plain old are finding it tough to connect with other people, choose a topic that you genuinely are interested in solving, or a question you really have, and find different venues. Again, Twitter, people love to explain things to you on Twitter, right? Find places to actually ask that question. You'll get a wide variety of helpful and unhelpful responses, but maybe there's something in there that can help you start to build that connection and then reciprocate too.
Nice. And I think we actually have time for one more question. So can you speak a little bit about the benefits of building a personal board of mentors versus relying solely on one mentor? You talked about it a little bit in your talk, but can you delve into that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So one person has a particular set of skills, right? I am one person, I have a particular set of skills. I am not great at a lot of things. I want to make sure that everybody who's leaning on me to support them as they grow also has other people who have different sets of skills and experiences and backgrounds and connections and places that they can sponsor them, right? That way, I love this idea of like a Voltron, right? Like coming together and like with all of your friends and your networks, just helping make sure it's a diversified list of skills, experiences, and places to put your name in the ring for, that we could actually have more of an opportunities to grow in the ways that you want to grow.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lara, for joining us live. It's great to see you as
Great to
always.
see you. Thanks, everybody.
I'm sorry.
Oh, just saying thanks.
Yeah, I always learn a ton from you, like every time we talk. So this is always enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.